On Valentine's Day, the tradition is you take your beloved to someplace nice. Now, I'm guessing several of you have been to Cedar Key up on the Nature Coast. Beautiful part of the Gulf Coast. And on Valentine's Day, driving down State Route 24, and you probably, if you've been there, know that route. It's long, and it's straight, and there's nothing on it until you get to Cedar Key. But if you pay close attention, a few miles before you get to Cedar Key, there is a faded historical marker. And the historical marker, and how closely do you ever stop and read those things? Not very often. But this historical marker talks about a community called Rosewood. And the Rosewood story is interesting, not as just as Melanie talked about. You talk about repressed history, but it's important history. You see, in the turn of the century, Rosewood was quite a successful and vibrant community. It was a black community full of proud, hard-working people. They had sawmills. They made turpentine. Turpentine stills were a big thing in terms of all of the things needed for naval stores for the vessels of that time. And the Florida Railroad went through it. And they had a robust economy. And everybody was happy and proud. The children were filled with joy. They weren't filled with dread. They had a happy community. They played together in the sandy streets. They had their own school. On Sundays, the families would get together in a community church that they had built. Black hands built that community. They built the houses, the schools, the stores, the churches. And on Sundays, you could hear the music from the church resonating through the different streets and the alleyways. It was angelic. And on evenings where the day was over and the sawmill had shut down for the day, instead of the sounds of machinery, you had the comfortable conversations that were drifting through town and the aroma of home-cooked meals coming out of open windows. But a new year came along, and that year was 1923. You see, a few miles away was a town called Sumner, and Sumner was a white sawmill community. And Sumner didn't like the prosperity and the peace and the togetherness that they were seeing in Rosewood. And then a white woman filed a complaint. She'd been attacked by a black man. Well, that's all it took. See, in Jim Crow's South, that could not be tolerated. And the men took to arms. They had gatherings. They got everybody worked up. There had to be justice. Somebody needed to be found. This perpetrator needed to be brought to justice. And in that community, there was a man named Sam Carter. Sam Carter was a humble man. He was a skilled craftsman. He was known for his work, but he kept to himself. Well, they laid their hands on Sam and they beat him and they tortured him, trying to get him to confess, but Sam didn't have an answer to that because Sam had not attacked that woman, but he was a black man. And obviously from the woman's account, this story must be true. After they couldn't get the answer they sought for from Sam, they killed them and threw them out on the main road as an example. And as if that wasn't enough, they decided this was time to wage war on the neighboring community of Rosewood. And in the middle of the night, they showed up with lit torches and rifles. And they went around and started torching all the buildings in town. And rifle shots went through the walls of those homes that were built to protect the inhabitants. The families fled to the woods, hoping to find safety behind the trees. And you can see parents clutching tight to their children, and children clutching tight to each other, watching their whole community being burned to the ground, and listening to the crackling of the fire and the crunching of the roofs that collapsed into the destroyed dwellings. That went on for almost a week until there was no more town of Rosewood. The inhabitants never came back for reasons that you can understand. And that story in the history of Florida disappeared for over 70 years until a group that remembered that story. Because these stories like this are passed in quiet moments in families when the quiet demands that important things be discussed and shared. And this had happened from generation to generation until finally the story became so important to be told that the governor was finally forced to recognize this atrocity that had happened in 1923. And if you're going down Route 24, headed towards Cedar Key, you're going to come across a stand of pines. There's no other houses around it. It looks, for all intents and purposes, like virgin timber, but it's not. It's just the effect of nature reclaiming what had been theirs before. And if you step out in your car, and it's a quiet road, you don't have a lot of traffic on it, I invite you to listen. Listen to the sound whistling through the trees. Listen to the music coming from the church. Listen to the voices of the people in their homes, cooking dinner, talking about the events of the day. Because those are the kind of sounds that resonate with us, the kind of things that bring out the feelings and emotions that are important for us to share from generation to generation. Because the reality is that these are stories about a time where there was great love. And these are testimonies to the fact that you can burn down a community, but you can't burn down a pleasant memory and tradition with hate. Thank you.